It's a Tuesday at 3 p.m. You know what that means. Time to hop back into the world of DraftKings best ball here on Stochastic. We're competing for $15 million in total prizes. $2 million to first place in the DraftKings Best Ball Millie Maker. Of course, last week was Best Ball Week, but that doesn't mean the fun has to stop in the world of best ball because we still keep drafting teams and even 150 max this bad boy and get some rake back over on DraftKings. But of course, I'm already in a draft room here, picking in the very influential 101 spot. No names I recognize here. Did tip off my Discord before the show, and I guess they all said, go to hell. Not gonna I don't want to draft with you. They're terrified to draft me, but of course you do join my OddsShopper Tails package or the YouTube on my Splash Play channels. You get access to my Discord if you want to get insights, news stuff, and there is more news going on. Training camp, I feel like a bit of a slow start so far. We've had our domestic violence stuff with Quinshon Judkins. We talked about that. Rashee Rice suspension stuff, talked about that last week as well. Basically, a lot of people out there, a lot of the projection sites estimating 4 to 6 games now. I would have thought 2 to 4, but it does seem like 4 to 6, the more common expectation for Rashee Rice to miss for suspension for vehicular recklessness. I don't know what the exact charge was. Didn't kill anybody. That's a positive, but did do some things that got him to having to plead guilty. So for Rashee Rice, see what the suspension news is. Same thing for Jordan Addison. We're waiting to see what that is. Expectation there is that's more like a 2 to 4 game suspension, but certainly both guys missing about a month. Something to account for, but not to knock them out entirely on sites like DraftKings, where you are in a pod format trying to spike the upside for the playoffs and weeks that are going to matter so much. We're on the clock here at the 101, so let's see what we can do. Whenever I'm in the 101 at this stage of things, with a lot of entries still to put in across all the best ball sites out there, I do just take Jamar Chase. Some people overthink this. They'll go for Jefferson. They'll take Jefferson every single time over Jamar Chase, and I get kind of the game theory of it, the idea of, hey, here's a top projected receiver. Maybe I can take a different one and hope that he beats him out. But in reality, Jamar Chase's upside is as it is because he had a great role last year, ton of targets, even though the target per out run rate not as high as some guys like even your Malik Neighbors is, your Drake London's was under 30%, which is kind of a benchmark number for me. Jamar Chase, still a guy we saw week after week having the big upside, the ability to put up 40 fantasy points in a game, the ability as well to continue to be in shootout game scripts because of how bad Cincinnati was. So in particular on defense, not going to get much better this year, especially if they don't sign guys like Hendrickson, their rookie Stewart, guys they need to bring into camp that they've not been able to bring into camp so far. In fact, Trey Hendrickson's apparently on vacation now based on some of his social media posting. For the Bengals, the fact that that defense was so bad, they've lost guys and seemingly can't get more guys in the building that they need on D-line in particular. It's a team that should be equally bad on defense this year and should have a similar upside on offense as a result. But 3 rules of best ball we always want to talk about here. Again, general rules of thumb. Much like in DFS, you're looking at projections, things like that, ownership with Stochastics data, and of course the sim tools as well. For best ball, you can have similar principles to give yourself a shot at building teams consistently that have the structure of the shot to win it all. So first rule of thumb would be being aware of the average draft position, especially at this time of year. Sometimes you'll find during these July and August months, a lot more casual drafters coming in. Casual drafters also like to throw ADP out the window, take guys wherever they want to take them, things like that. Basically for how it is for how ADP works, people sometimes outthink it, but really in reality, if you use it like a median projection, take guys around ADP, absorb the value, try to build teams that again, can take as much value on as possible in a lot of cases where if you have guys falling 20 spots, there's no injury, no reason why that guy should be falling. You just pick that guy and let your team be unique through that prism. That's what ADP is valuable for. So if you are a DFS player, you're thinking about it again through that lens of it being a median projection like you use, and DFS do the same thing there. Stacking and correlation, another thing that's not to be foreign for you guys who are in the world of DFS on a weekly basis. Stacking your QB with 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end, sometimes multiples of that. For best ball, you can err on the side of more guys than not because you're just trying to capture that rising tide of this team performs well. We're going to certainly see some upside hit. If you were to kind of point micro examples from last year, situation like Andre Yoshevitz, a player that people liked a lot in Bengals stacks, didn't have a ton of upside last year as a late pick. Maybe that's where the Bengals rotation gets a little bit thin, even though he had upside, had Higgins out for 4 or 6 games, whatever it was last year. I think it was more like 6. For Yoshevitz, he never really hit a big upside despite that. Maybe he had 1 spike game, something like that. That's where your mileage may vary for certain teams. Differently, I guess you could say a team like Washington, you had Terry McLaurin being the guy who benefits for the most part throughout the year. The RBs got there a good amount, but you also saw guys like Zach Ertz get there a lot, in particular down the home stretch. And by get there, I mean, score enough points to be a viable play, to be worth whatever the draft capital coming in. But basically, at this point, for how the draft capital works out and how the stacking works out, err on more sides than not for best ball, including RBs as well. Doesn't have to be directly correlated like catching RBs catching targets, catching touchdowns from the QB. That obviously is great to have it if you have your previous JD McKissick types. But in reality here, would say that for you guys out there, stacking more than you would in DFS tournaments, probably a good move. And number three, big thing to keep in mind is that the expected value is realized in week 17. It's definitely a thing where overall, people on Twitter, I think in particular, get caught up in the idea of advance rate. And you really do want to advance as many teams as possible, obviously. But it's not just about advancing teams. It's about advancing teams and getting them to have a good run through the playoffs, be strong enough to withstand the luck that's required to win a tournament where basically you're in different pods throughout the way. Sometimes you face really good teams. Sometimes you face shitty teams. In the finals, though, you're facing all the best teams and the luckiest teams. So having the ability to kind of take that down with that structure is really the main thing in week 17 we're looking for, because that's when all the money's paid out. You win barely anything for advancing a team. You win a lot if you win a share of that $15 million on DraftKings that you win in week 17. We got two picks coming up here. So we got Jamar Chase, pretty common start at this stage. Would be Trey McBride and T. Higgins. Hard to not just absorb that when you get it. But let's see if we can do something a little different here. I'm going to take Trey McBride. Still feel pretty good about taking the tight end. So I'm thinking Garrett Wilson or Chase Brown here. Again, people will normally take T. Higgins on top, do the Cincinnati stack, take Joe Burrow around pick 49 or so. For how it is right now, for me, I would like to get that combo, but I know based on the ownership tools out there, it's a pretty common combo. Let's go Garrett Wilson. I like the idea of pairing this team with a Justin Fields potentially, trying to get the higher upside at QB, knowing that a lot of these teams with Jamar Chase, with Trey McBride will probably have Joe Burrow. And a tool that I did show you guys on stream last week, which again, not a stochastic affiliated tool, so keep that in mind. Not something that they're giving their cosign on, but I do think it's a useful usage of DraftKings putting out data this year. We're going to basically look at combos here in this tool at fantasy.vip/DKMM. I'll drop the link in the chat as well for you guys that want it. There you go. We can see the combinatorial ownership based upon DraftKings data that they put out themselves at the end of June. And hopefully they'll put out another update here at the end of July, because that'll really give us at least not a theoretical edge, if not a real edge, because frankly, you could know the exact players are going to hit in week 17. It might still be hard to actually win it all in a tournament because of how the luck structure works with pods and all that. But let's see what we have here. So Jamar Chase, normally in this range, he'll go with Joe Burrow 30% of the time that Jamar Chase is selected. He'll go with T. Higgins 29% of the time that Jamar Chase is selected. People will have Trey McBride 24% of the time that Jamar Chase is selected. What about Garrett Wilson? Garrett Wilson, only 11%. So the lack of correlation here, and just to see too, if my theory is correct. Yeah, 10% of teams with Jamar Chase have Justin Fields, whereas 30% of them have Joe Burrow. So theoretically, you could take both, but what interests me here is trying to kind of get some leverage on what people are doing on DraftKings regularly. It's very easy to take the Cincinnati, Arizona build and feel good about it. I certainly do it enough, whether it's on DraftKings, whether it's on Underdog, whether it's on Drafters, the three main best ball sites out there, if you're not familiar. Basically, for how this goes, I would assume that across all these sites, most of these teams right here are going to have Joe Burrow, probably about 40% of them overall across the industry. So, I mean, obviously right now DraftKings is 30, so maybe 30 to 40 might be a safer bet overall. So trying to do anything that makes it a little bit different, gives you a shot to go against these teams potentially in week 17 and have some leverage. I considered that a little bit. You don't have to, but it's when you have this data, you kind of want to use it for something, is really the way I feel about it. And really the Joe Burrow chopping up those stacks and figuring out if there's any way to do something a little bit different from what everybody else is doing, something I've been trying to do. So I think adding Chase Brown would be another interesting way to do it instead of Garrett Wilson. That's a choice I made. Luck is only a percentage. Skills and balls also count. Okay, sure. I think it's a data point. Honey Badger just hung up his cleats. I was sad to see it. Really no impact on best ball, but certainly a name for sure with Tyrann Mathieu stepping away. He's been around for a while, despite the fact it feels like he's young in my brain. What's up, Spags? Hope your summer's going well. It's going well. We're drafting best ball teams. Appreciate all you guys who are tuning in here. And again, this is the heart of things. You have about 44 days right now until NFL season kicks off. So if you're trying to get best ball teams in, now is a good time to start thinking about that. In particular, in August, if you drafted all of your teams in August, you would lose some theoretical CLV from guys that have risen a lot because the markets have caught up. Tyjae Spears is one. Quentin Johnston's rising right now because people are finally catching up on the fact he's going to be likely the wide receiver 2 for the Chargers, at least until Trey Harris shows enough to move ahead of him at maybe some point. Might not even be this year, but at some point it'll happen. Basically, you're not getting a ton right now with how things look for some players out there. Not a lot's changing. So, I mean, really the main thing that you're going to get news about is in August. That's when a couple of years ago we heard about Kyron Williams getting third down work, Puka Nacua being regularly involved with the first team. That was stuff we learned in August. So really a lot of the news you're going to have is in August. So if you haven't drafted a team yet, it's a good time to do it over at DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app right now to draft your $20 best ball lineup. Play for a share of $15 million. When you do that, you get a second ticket as well to play free for another share of $15 million. And of course, in best ball, that means 2 chances to win big without ever setting your lineup again compared to your $15 million redraft leagues that you're all doing out there. Here on DraftKings, you get a shot at that big prize pool. You don't have to touch the lineup again. So that's the big thing about best ball. But really, if you haven't drafted teams yet, you might want to get on it if you're going to 150 max these tournaments. But really, the news advantage is at the biggest point. Last 2 weeks of August, certainly the month of August in general, knowing where guys run in a rotation is a really big part of things. And guys running with the second team, like Isaac Tesla for the Lions, safely behind a guy like Tim Patrick. Doesn't mean it happens all year, but it does mean that for right now, you can't take Isaac Tesla and expect him to have a projection because he's not playing with the starters. Shout out Extra QT. Love you. Appreciate you guys being here. Guys like Extra QT, been a long time viewer of my Splash Play channel as well. Check that out at Splash Play Pod. Joe Burrow goes here, so we won't even have to think about getting our Cincinnati stack. The guy with Higgins wanted him so bad. Would love to get an RB here. Not a lot of RBs I'm crazy about reaching for. But I think Kenneth Walker is one of those guys I'm cool trying to come up and get as a hero RB build here. I mean, and hero, I use that term loosely with him coming here in round 4. A little bit of an ADP value on DJ Moore. I don't mind him at this point. Could also drag up a guy like Joe Mixon, who I think would prop up our RB projection a little bit more. Guy who was a 20-touch back last year. I think I'm going to do that. Reaching for sure here, but I do feel pretty strongly that we're in a bit of a break for RBs at this point where I've been a staunchly zero RB guy in previous years, kind of learned the hard way last year that really, even though I was aware of RB ADPs being pretty favorable for some guys in particular, I just still didn't build that way enough. And really this year, my focus has been trying to build more balanced teams, trying to build more projectable teams as well, thinking about how projections look at Stochastic on a weekly basis. Getting 2 RBs in like Walker, like Mixon, like Kamara. Not a big Chuba Hubbard fan, but you could lump him in as well. I think you kind of want to get these guys in the mix because there is a pretty big tier break. Historically, this would be called the RB dead zone, but I really feel like for now and how ADPs look, getting these guys in, I don't want to build a zero RB team starting with Aaron Jones and that tier of running backs. So that's one thing that I would say is how I'm building this year. Obviously, you can follow your heart, choose how you want to go down that pathway. But I really strongly believe on DraftKings, you can pull off zero RB more than the half-point PPR sites like Underdog, but really don't think it's super advantageous for zero RB. That said, everybody feels that way this year. They saw the Saquons, Derrick Henry sitting last year. Chase Browns were not a zero RB play, but certainly a lot of popular teams had that. People chasing that archetype as well. This year, you have a lot of people who love Bijan Robinson, love Jahmyr Gibbs. Ashton Genty is the one who I think sticks out kind of like a sore thumb in terms of projection and things like that. But you have so many RBs that I think have a shot at having real ceilings overall in terms of like a 30 fantasy point kind of game, weekly giving you 15 to 25 point projections, more like 15 to 20. I think it'd be more likely what you'll see week to week on Stochastic. You have a case to be made. You have like 10 guys like that up top here. So, that's sort of one thing to keep in mind, I guess, while building. Starting your zero RB teams with Pacheco. I really hate how Pacheco played last year. Having an under 10% avoided tackle rate, I actually believe he finished under 5%. And obviously he did get hurt and all of that, but really no juice. You have 4.8% avoided tackle rate for him last year. Negative 0.08 EPA per rush, according to Sports Info Solutions. Negative 0.09 EPA per pass. 1.4 red zone rushes a game. That workload wasn't really there for him. Obviously Kareem Hunt took a lot away when he came in later on in the year. I'm just not crazy about what Pacheco did, and I try to be mindful of guys, in particular guys who came in with no real draft capital, didn't come in with a lot of pedigree. Maybe we've seen the best of Pacheco. Maybe the injury knocks him off. I don't know. I just hate that price tag for him. There's so many guys in that range I feel better about. In terms of team total, I get it. I mean, KC is a top 5 projected team total team. I think they're projected to average 24 points a game based on the look ahead lines. That's a pretty steep number. And obviously, you expect one of the running backs to pick up that work, but you still have Hunt there. You still have you have Eli Mitchell being added in there now, which is a pretty big one. Rashard Smith, I'm not crazy about, but he is this year's rookie that people can talk themselves into, like Carson Steele previously, like Deneric Prince previously. Maybe he's the most talented of them all. Who knows? But I don't think so. Point being is like there's a lot of ways for it to not be Pacheco. So I think that's a lot of risk to absorb in that range where, I mean, previously you'd get DeAndre Swift. We'll see the guys that go around there. But like if you're telling me Pacheco versus Aaron Jones, I'd prefer Aaron Jones. You're telling me Pacheco versus Montgomery, I prefer Montgomery. Just not a big Pacheco believer. He was so bad last. It's just hard to overcome in my brain when you're that bad. Like, and he wasn't that bad before, but he was that bad in a situation too, where they were full ball control mode, full, wanting to not take a ton of risks in the pass game. And he still sucked that bad. But we got 2 picks coming up here. Chris Godwin, a faller right now. Twitter freaking out because there's a photo from the jersey reveal day for the Bucks where Chris Godwin's ankle looks a little bit fat. He did actually get a steel plate put in his ankle after his dislocation last year. So certainly, that's something to consider here. That said, I still like Chris Godwin. Big believer in what he showed last year, being a top 5 receiver before he did get hurt. I'm not a big Egbuka believer. Think that he's safely going to be behind Godwin. We'll see how it goes, but I'm going to take Godwin here because we need some wide receiver firepower coming in. And I think another RB wouldn't be crazy given where we are right now in terms of only having 2 backs. But I want to get another receiver in. I think Jacoby Myers, he certainly is another receiver. So Jacoby Myers, come on down. Feel like a better PPR play as well than the half PPR sites. So 2 RBs, 4 receivers, 1 elite tight end through 7 rounds. We got Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon. We got Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Chris Godwin, Trey McBride, Jacoby Myers. The start here, pretty solid. It definitely comes down to what we get back at QB or don't get back. And certainly think there's a shot that Justin Fields goes before pick 96, even though that's his ADP. We'll see what this room gives us. If Fat Keenan could have a good year last year, I'm all in for fat leg. That's sad. Fat leg Godwin. Look, I think when you keep in mind that he had a metal plate put into his leg, that alone would explain his ankle being a little bit larger. I'm in the photos, but really he's still in the recovery timeline that Tampa Bay has said this entire offseason. They expect him to be ready for week 1, not necessarily for training camp. They definitely obfuscated what the injury was initially. Big word, but they definitely obfuscated what the ankle injury was initially, with just saying it was dislocation. In reality, he had a broken, I think, tibia or fibula, whatever that one is. There's like a big athletic article about it, and like, I want to say May, after he had already signed his $66 million deal with the Bucks. Basically, like, it was a worse injury than people realized. I think holding that against him is really not something I want to do. I want to lean into the good which for last year was a lot for him. Godwin's numbers last year, not Godwin Igabuke. That doesn't help. 0.56 EPA per target, which is kind of crazy given the fact he wasn't exactly an air yards killer, only 5.6 air yards per target, but a 28% target per out run, 1 red zone target a game. Really strong play overall. Again, target earning per route, big thing I focus on. Being that efficient as well really means that the route tree is strong for him. And I would hope that a lot of the stuff ports over this year with Tampa Bay promoting from internally, Josh Griswold, the guy taking over after being the passing game coordinator last year under Liam Cohen. So I like Godwin enough that I like the ankle injury certainly spooks me a little bit. Not being active at this point spooks me a little bit. But really people are going to be afraid of that if he's going to fall in rooms, especially on DraftKings where full point PPR matters so much. I think Chris Godwin might be undervalued at a certain point. And frankly, pick 72. I think he might already be undervalued. You have a metal plate in your waist that's swollen, does not affect my self-gratification. Thank you for that. Not in the stochastic streams. I appreciate, I guess it wasn't actual dirty words. Extra QTing knowledge from Spags. I appreciate our pal EMAC here. EMAC running for president one of these days. He's due for it. And yes, rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne. That is a sad one. A guy who's was a obviously popular musical figure for a while, then kind of had a renaissance, a pop culture figure, as his wife bled his borderline dementia for every dollar it was worth. And now he's gone. He's still making songs and stuff too, which is pretty impressive given his age. But Well, I'm sure there's probably some vocal tracks laid down that'll get played entirely too much in new quote unquote new albums for Ozzy, because so people go. Officially coming out from John Lynch, the Niners GM. Ricky Pearsall going to come off the PUP list in the first few days of Niners training camp. So another guy people have been panicking about a little bit that people maybe need to panic about less. Justin Fields goes away from me here, so that's not great. I would have liked to have gotten him. Correlation at this point getting kind of thin. We have lost out on all the logical QBs that would have paired at this point. This is frustrating. All right. Really lacking stuff to backdoor as well. I am going to absorb the Matthew Golden value right now. Normally it goes much higher in ADP. Not crazy about him as a prospect, but I think that'll work for this team. God, not getting Kyler or Fields or really any of the guys who would have made sense here is pretty rough. We've got 5 wide receivers. I think we need an RB here. Only 2 of those. Jalen Warren, come on down. Like him as a click, a good amount overall. We only took, I would say, decent RB capital, not great RB capital, with none of the top guys. So we went Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon. Jalen Warren's the RB3. At receiver, Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, who I really wanted to get with Fields, but he got sniped 1 pick before we went. Chris Godwin here. Baker Mayfield went earlier. Kyler Murray, couldn't get him stacked up with McBride. Obviously, Burrow went early as well. Jacoby Myers, we could take Geno late. Jordan Love, we could take now. That's sort of what I'm looking at with Golden. But man, that was brutal. That was every QB who looked good was gone. So that sucks. Even Bo Nix went early here. I feel like he normally, in rooms I'm going in, he's normally going around pick 100, and I kind of do a lot of backdoor Denver stacks as a result. This room took everybody a little bit early. That's tough. That's tough. But guys, if you're watching this video live or after the fact, show some love. Hit that like button, subscribe here. Of course, Stochastic, known for its DFS content and quality stuff as always, including the MLB Live Before Lock show that'll be coming up later today. For you guys out there, show some love if you can. Show some love for Stochastic, doing best ball drafts. For DraftKings, allowing us to do these streams here. Of course, with DraftKings making their big push in best ball this year with the free entries you get. Your first entry, you put one in for $20, get a second one for free right away. Big rake back as well. If you max out the tournament, put in 150 entries, I believe you get $300 back. So good stuff going on DraftKings this year, including their flash deals they've had, including all of last week for the best ball week stuff. But check out their DraftKings offerings here. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app and get in there. And of course, you get the formal ad read from Greg Ehrenberg at the end of the video where, boy, it just goes on for a while. But Greg doing a great ad read as always. I mean, look, you can squeeze blood from a stone, I guess, is really what we learned from Sharon Osbourne. Rate your draft? No. No, I'll look at it fast. Decent balance in the beginning. Would ideally, if you can get the 5th receiver in before pick 100, would look a little bit better there. I mean, look, you didn't take anybody I don't like. Swift, Hampton, Gibbs, all RBs. I like a good amount. Josh Allen, elite QB. Never going to argue that. Shakir stacked up with it. You got decent value on Pearsall, which shouldn't be there really because he's going to be back from his hamstring injury pretty soon. If Pearsall's hamstring injury lingers, I'd start to worry a little bit more about him. But as it is right now, hopefully he'll be full go and ready, not have this be a reoccurring thing because he has had hamstring injuries in the past. But yeah, it's a nice team. I don't think it's anything special to be totally candid, but it's a nicely, solidly structured team. And that's the goal, really. Like, not every team is going to be a killer. Like, it's nice to absorb the values, like getting Pearsall at 91 for MP Surwa here, me getting Golden here at 96. Those are nice little ADP values, but really, unless you rack up a bunch of them, like a lot of these teams are going to be kind of the same to other teams out there, but it's just about continually building those teams that are steady and have that upside over and over again. And obviously, look, if you're putting in 1-2 entries in a tournament, I get taking a swing trying to get your favorite players. Just make sure to do that around ADP. Like you like Jalen Warren, take him pick 90 if you have to. Like, don't go crazy with it. But really, for the most part here, trying to draft off ADP using that as your guideline, absorbing the value here. It is median projection. It's salary kind of rolled into one. It's what ADP is. So just kind of keeping that in mind really would be one of the biggest things I would remind you guys of incessantly if I could. I think Shakir's ADP is pulled up by Allen teams. He goes in a wide enough ADP band that I wouldn't think so. But certainly Shakir feels a little bit elevated for being the wide receiver one for Buffalo, just given how that room operated last year where there wasn't a crazy amount of upside. And in fact, there wasn't really even ping-ponging weeks. Like we saw Kincaid not be fantastic, Shakir not really be fantastic. Curtis Samuel certainly not be fantastic. Keon Coleman was nothing special. I think it's going to be a little bit better this year, but I think the distribution, or last year, I just looked it up last stream, so it's top of mind. Shakir put up a 28% target per route run, rounding up. It's, I think, 27.6%. Like, that's a pretty good number for him, but he didn't run as many routes as a normal wide receiver one would. So, like, he kind of is inherently not a great play relative to other guys who would be a functional wide receiver one. Now you're adding in Josh Palmer, who I think is pretty good. Like, that stuff would worry me a little bit. We got Jordan Love here, who we're going to take because I'm panicking a little bit about QBs after getting all that stuff boxed out. Tucker Kraft also here, a guy I'd like to get more of at this point. Happy to do him here. So Green Bay double. No Baltimore bringbacks, unfortunately, but just losing out on really the four QBs I would have liked the most with Arizona, Tampa Bay, Jets, Cincinnati. Made it something where I just got to backdoor somebody. So pause. We got Matthew Golden, Tucker Kraft added onto our Jordan Love. That works. Need love? Are you talking about in your life? I give Robert Griffin III all the love. But yes, we need Jordan Love here. Unstacked McCarthy ahead of ADP. Yeah, one revelation from the DraftKings data is that McCarthy goes with Justin Jefferson more than any other QB and wide receiver pairing on DraftKings, which is kind of surprising. That said, for McCarthy, him stacked up with nobody is kind of weird. Does seem like the guy has Detroit bringbacks for week 17. He's got McCarthy with Laporta and with Amon-Ra St. Brown. So maybe that's the logic. But it's not great logic. Really, right now, I mean, we could look at the Fantasy VIP site real fast. Right now, here are the teams where if they do hit, if the stack hits, like these are your potential buzzsaw teams. McCarthy with Jefferson being stacked up 43% of the time. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb stacked up 41%. I'm not crazy about the Cowboys, but a lot of the industry is. So certainly feel free to follow the industry. Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson, the pairing I wanted to get today, but we got unfortunately sniped on that one. Penix and Drake London at 38.5%. Herbert and Ladd, 37.8%. Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas, about 38%. Stroud and Nico, Hurts and AJ Brown. A lot more stacking, frankly, than it feels like when you're actually in these rooms. But, that's it. No, we do not want to talk about your love life on these. That's right. Save it for the Discord. That's behind the paywall if you want to hear Robert Griffin III's penthouse letters. They're on the Splash Play Discord. We've got a 1-3-5-2 build so far. Let me give the team a read because we've got a few picks before we come up. We got Jordan Love, Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon. So didn't get the super elite RB, but trying to make sure we get enough draft capital in. Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Chris Godwin, our top three receivers. Godwin, obviously, the pup list stuff still hanging over his head, even though he's not on it for training camp. So hopefully he'll get out there much like Pearsall. Trey McBride, Jacoby Myers, Matthew Golden, scrambled to take him as an ADP value. Jalen Warren, Tucker Kraft. So Green Bay stack coming here. Really don't normally tack on these kind of mid-range stacks. Like I feel like that doesn't happen a lot for me for like putting together a Jordan Love thing. But I also frankly usually get one QB I'm aiming for out of a group of four. So it just didn't happen that way. Gino and Jacoby is the truth. I think that's hopefully what we'll get at some point, but we'll see. These guys, a few more picks before we come up. We got a decent stream pace here. 30-second clock's always an adjustment from the 20-second clocks, some of the other sites out there. Luther Burn at 141 in this room. He got guaranteed money, as all the top 10 picks in the second round did. Well, I guess besides Quinshon Judkins, who does not have a contract, which is why he can't get suspended. Got more 101s today than I have in the last 40 days. Yeah, this is my third straight 101. I think I was due for, but I do look very influential right now based on that factor and nothing else. All right, pick 144 and 145 here. There's really nothing. I guess, you know what? Now there's a few things late with Miami. If I want to keep doing weirdo little stacks, I could do that. I'm going to take the value. I mean, it's really not a ton of value, but I'm going to take Tua here. Going to build some backdoor Miami stuff, which really doesn't feel great, but just this QB room's got to come together. I think another RB would be helpful here because we are behind the 8 ball on RB. Garendo and Trey Benson, similar clicks to me, but we have this a little bit on Arizona, Cincinnati, even though we don't have the QBs. So yeah, I'm going to go Trey Benson here. But Garendo, I think, gets work alongside Christian McCaffrey this year. I know that's not a popular belief. I think people believe that McCaffrey is going to get his vintage workload, and it's going to be him getting 5 red zone opportunities a game, and Garendo's barely going to come in. With how McCaffrey got used last year, and it was still, Kyle Shanahan calling plays. McCaffrey only put up 2.8 red zone opportunities a game, which is a lot for a normal running back, but it's like half of what McCaffrey used to get when he was like the guy that everybody wanted in fantasy. I'm just not sold that you're not getting Garendo in the mix to keep McCaffrey healthy, to not risk him hurting himself further for a team that thinks it'll be good enough to compete. So I like getting Garendo. I think that he has a timeshare, but Benson has also been a guy where some FUD out there, Evan Silva, former On the Contrary co-host here back in the day with me and Osmo. I think he's talked about as well, like he doesn't believe in Trey Benson too much, and a player that at least his partner Adam Levitan has. These guys have talked about basically Benson being a timeshare back. Everything that Jonathan Gannon, the head coach for the Cardinals, has said is that they want to have this be a split backfield. I don't think it's going to be like a 50-50 split with him and James Conner. But if it's 60-40, if it's frankly 75-25, with Benson already getting some decent work last year, I want shots at Benson. So Conner being 30 plus years old, like he was fantastic last year, much like Derrick Henry was in an advanced stage relatively for running backs, much like Saquon Barkley was in an advanced stage last year relative to running backs, and certainly with volume. I think that Conner was great, but like those guys, the risk really for them, even though they were so great, is that injury could come a little bit more easily. And if that's the case, Benson would be an absolute smash ADP. So I think he has a role as it is, but I think he's got big upside if Conner goes down. So he'll be my RB4 here. That's me coping with taking Trey Benson as RB4. Really, this team is like way thinner at RB than I'm normally going these days. So I would say this is an atypical team for how I'm normally approaching things currently, because ADPs require you, I think, to get more RBs in early than they ever have. And we didn't do that quite as well today. I could have done Johnny with Warren. That's true. He's gone now. Aaron Rodgers as QB2 didn't do it for me. And really the big thing is that we've got the Tampa Bay bet. I don't know. One thing I do a lot, which I just talked about on my previous stream on Splash Play and my YouTube channel, which I'll link in here because you guys might want to watch that stream as well. One thing that I do when I'm getting boxed out on QB is look at what I have in terms of like my stacks right now or my receivers. What can I get as an opposite correlation? So I saw I have Chris Godwin, knew that I could get the opposite QB there with Tua Tagovailoa. Also know that we have Darren Waller, Malik Washington, Nick Westbrook-Akine late, Jalen Wright as well if I wanted to go that way. I'm not crazy about him as an example. We could still put together a Miami stack without Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, even though if Tua Tagovailoa hits the ceiling, it's likely coming with one of Hill or Waddle. But we'll try to do it this way instead. At least that was my thought. Geno Smith goes here. That's also part of it. Was like, wasn't going to take Geno at pick 145. And this room took him early. Uncorrelated, it looks like. Great stuff. Great stuff. Oh, well. All right, here's my stream I did earlier. If you want to see me draft on all the platforms today, including Underdog, DraftKings, and Drafters, check out the stream on Splash Play, linked in the chat right now. That's where I'm doing drafts, my larger, longer streams on Tuesdays and Fridays on there. More coming from me as well in terms of daily training camp updates when there's enough news out there to actually put together videos and have them feel worth the effort. So stuff coming out for me on my @SplashPlay pod channel. Subscribe on YouTube, hit the like button on videos on there, and watch them. That's the main thing. The love of God. Watch things. I'm glad you like large, long streams. That's all I can ask. Amount of ass sweat I've accumulated today could hydrate a villain. I don't think they want to be hydrated off your ass sweat, for the record. Jalen Wright goes, so that's one player that might have made sense that's now gone. Do you think we need to add some more at RB? So I'm taking one RB here and Tank Bigsby. A guy who I think outperformed how people view him last year by a pretty good margin. We also have the Green Bay correlation. I'm just going to, I guess, keep stacking that up. Romeo Doubs here. I think he is a viable Green Bay player. To me, Savion Williams, the guy coming in who maybe replaces him. I just don't think he's going to be ready in year one to do that, at least barring injury or something like that. Doubs has been a reliable target for Jordan Love for years. So he's a guy that's worked out with Love every offseason, even when guys like Christian Watson were not going to do that. I think that shows in how they've played together. So Romeo Doubs be another Green Bay Packer I'm adding on here at this late stack, and I'm going to have to get some Miami guys late as well. Right now, though, the room is a 2-5-6-2, so 2 QBs, 5 RBs, 6 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. We got Jordan Love alongside Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon. So again, not a bad RB start. I just think I didn't grab enough immediately after that. Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Chris Godwin could get none of the QBs with these guys, so that made this room a little bit tougher for me. Trey McBride, our elite tight end. Jacoby Myers, could not get Geno with him. Matthew Golden, part of our Green Bay stack. Jalen Warren, he's a fine RB. Tucker Kraft, part of our Green Bay stack. Tua Tagovailoa, got to stack something with him. Right now, we just have that Tampa Bay Week 17 correlation with Chris Godwin. Trey Benson, an RB. Tank Bigsby, an RB. Romeo Doubs, part of the Green Bay stack. This RB room, it's crazy. Is that definitely one of the thinnest RB rooms I've built in a while. Really been trying to get in one guy in the top 3 rounds. If I get only one guy in the top 3 rounds, sometimes another RB in round 4. It's really been the way I've been building across everything this year. So to do it this way, it's not even old. It's not old school zero RB, but to me, it feels like what zero RB is in 2025. Where just a lot of guys, Walker and Mixon, I think, are guaranteed more than some other guys here. Really on DK, zero RB starts here, and you got, like, if you're building a zero RB team, and you get Swift, Pollard, Brian Robinson / ATN / Tracy Mason. I think those are all fine. Jalen Warren, you'd have to start it at least here, I think, for zero RB. And I really don't think starting a zero RB team with RJ Harvey or Travion Henderson, I personally don't think that pays off. I think those guys are very overdrafted because people heard rookies are great in this class. And in reality, there's a couple of really great rookies up top, and there's a lot of guys that are maybe going to have a role in football for a while, maybe not make a roster as well at some point. So RB class is really overrated, is how I feel about it. I think in terms of like year one impact, I guess that's a better way to put it. These guys might have careers, but in terms of guys hitting the field year one and being really viable, Jency and Hampton are going to do it. Everybody else live to get some work, but I don't think there's a lot of Bucky Irvings. And I say that as a preeminent Bucky Irving expert. Big, beautiful, best ball trash stream. Yes, that's the most big and beautiful one out there, I'm sure. Third World Village would consider ass sweat. I don't think so. They would need a lot of filtration on it for sure. And I don't know how you filter ass sweat to make it drinkable. Traditionally clean, though I may look... Thank you, Chunk, for the update. Our man with the ass sweat. I get it, though. It's hot. And Chunk is in Texas, too, I believe. So that'd be a double whammy of heat accumulation. I mean, we can't even take Aaron Rodgers at this point. He's gone. DraftKings QB panic, man. Everybody's got to get 3 QBs on DraftKings, and you don't have to. I certainly would love to have a third QB with Love and Tua, but I'm not going to force it. Even Tyler Shuck going early, that's tough. Darren Waller, would like to get him for correlation at this point with the Miami stack that I've got nothing from. Another RB in Marshawn Lloyd if I want to really increase my Green Bay bet that's already pretty large. I mean, I do love Marshawn Lloyd, and I think this would be a time to take him. Shipley, I'm just not crazy about. There's no guarantee there's even a role behind Saquon Barkley. So I am going to go Marshawn Lloyd here. 2-6-6-3 build is where I'm at right now. Pretty well balanced, I suppose. And we've got good parts here. I think this team just, I wouldn't say it got away from me. The team just feels different than I thought it would be when I was putting together my early picks, because I got none of the QBs back I expected. So the trickle-down effect made it a little bit tough. But I think I salvaged it about as well as I could. Jordan Love, again, our first QB off the board, backdoor stacked him now really aggressively. Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon are starting RBs. Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Chris Godwin. Elite tight end, Trey McBride, part of the Cincinnati, Arizona stack. Didn't quite come together with the QBs. Jacoby Myers, Matthew Golden, Jalen Warren, Tucker Kraft, Tua Tagovailoa here, who we now have stacked up with Darren Waller. Trey Benson, Tank Bigsby, Romeo Dobbs, and Marshawn Lloyd, part of my gigantic Green Bay stack. And that's one thing, I guess, to tie it together with what we talked about in the beginning of the video. In terms of the concept of stacking in best ball, that's a team that in DFS, I don't think you would ever build a Romeo Dobbs, Matthew Golden, Tucker Kraft, Marshawn Lloyd team. Like, that'd be batshit to do unless they were all like 3K for some reason. You wouldn't do that. And even then, you wouldn't really win a tournament with that, most likely. That said, like that team in best ball could make a lot more sense. I would tend to think this might still be a little bit overstacky, which is how touchdown distributions work. But I think in best ball, it plays a little bit better, especially with guys going cheaper here, like Dobbs, like Lloyd. That's my hope. Keep it at 2, not Nightbot. Sorry, I accidentally clicked Nightbot. Keep it at 2 QB at this point. I think that's my plan. Daniel Jones didn't really do it for me. Weird thing, which also happened in the last stream to DraftKings draft I did. Taking AR and Daniel Jones together, not a good move. I certainly do actually believe that both guys will start at points this year, but you want to just pinpoint, like, do you think Daniel Jones wins enough games to hold the job all year, assuming that he does end up starting? There's no guarantee on that. Or does AR just end up starting and then finish week 17 as well? But I think you run a shot that, like, all those outcomes are viable. Like AR starting, losing the job because he gets hurt or because he's playing shittily. Daniel Jones has to come back in. If I had to put my money on it, I would think Anthony Richardson starts by week 17 because the owners have talked enough about him. Like, he's on his rookie deal. That was actually the most recent quote from one of Jim Irsay's daughters that are now running things. She was saying, like, oh yeah, he's on his rookie deal. Like, he's got time to show that he's worth, what we drafted him at. That's something where, like, all the wind to me would say that it will be blowing towards Anthony Richardson starting in week 17. But if the Colts are 9-6 heading down to the playoffs, when you actually need that production to spike, like, Daniel Jones keeps starting too. There's enough risk on both sides that, like, I get the logic in wanting to take both. But I mean, what does this guy have at QB? This guy's got Lamar and Kyler Murray. You have no reason to go 4 QBs here and just try to pinpoint this spot that's, like, not, I don't know. Like, it's not going to beat out Lamar most likely no matter what. So why do it would be my thought process. I think it's a waste of 2 picks here that can give you theoretically more upside anywhere else. And, like, you don't need somebody to outscore Lamar and Kyler. It's a lot of draft capital already. But that's, again, it's a trend I'm seeing pop up because it's been twice today. I've seen people doing that. Don't do that. 2 RBs from a team can be a little bit much based on the data. 2 QBs from the same team is, like, nuts. 2-6-6-3 build here. She's going to take some receivers to add some value in because there's really not any correlation I need to chase. Diami Brown, like him a lot. The fact he's available here at pick 216, way too cheap to me. Keaton Mitchell, another RB I could take. Give me some, at least a little bit of Baltimore Green Bay week 17 correlation. So I am going to try to do that here. I'm going to take Keaton Mitchell. So that's our round 19 pick here. We got to wait till the Mr. Irrelevant on the board, but let me give my team a read here. If you guys have any chats, any questions, drop them in right now because I'm going to have a lot of time to fill here in round 19. But we got Jordan Love, Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Chris Godwin. So losing out on Fields in particular really made this team a different one than I thought I would have. Trey McBride, Jacoby Myers, Matthew Golden, Jalen Warren, Tucker Kraft, Tua Tagovailoa, Trey Benson, Tank Bigsby, Romeo Dobbs, Darren Waller, Diami Brown, Marshawn Lloyd, Keaton Mitchell here. So 7 RBs because the RB room really think we need to throw some volume at it. 7 wide receivers. Don't know that we need the 7 wide receivers quite as much, but 7 feels like a bare minimum normally at receiver. We got 3 tight ends. Waller, Kraft, and McBride with an elite tight end. That's more than enough. So the last pick being a receiver, probably going to be the move. Maybe an RB if it's somebody great left, but I don't know who that would be. It's a tough team, though. This took a little more brain power than I was hoping for, if I'm being honest. Thought this would be kind of a clean one to pick up, like, some outs. Really wanted to get the Cincinnati stack with Fields, but it wasn't happening today. Imagine AR playing every game this year. I'd have some fun teams. I have not taken enough Richardson, and I liked him so much as a rookie, But man, he really didn't get better in year 2, and in fact, actively got worse. That's hard for me to overcome. And I try to treat guys as like a new, in a new situation every year, where it's like, for Jane Daniels, loved him as a rookie coming in, thought the price tag was too cheap. Then he showed legit top 3 QB upside. Now I think you treat him as such and hope he makes a gigantic leap in year 2. For AR, like the underlying stats weren't even good when he was good as a rookie to be like, and I would count him as a victory for getting him right as a rookie for that month where he was like a world beater and a top QB. But the passing stats were still really bad. The accuracy is like a bottom tier for the pros. I frankly think, I don't know. It's hard to even say he'd be better off not playing because like he needs to play and get better and get more accurate. But I've been really shocked that like Shane Steichen hasn't schemed it better for him to like be more accurate. Like, I'll put up the numbers real fast. But like catchable ball rate is a huge one for me. And I believe he's like 18 percentage points less than Daniel Jones. He had a 65% catchable ball rate, a 55% on target rate that AR last year. And you're talking about numbers that are worse than Will Levis, worse than Spencer Rattler. Daniel Jones last year, 78% catchable ball rate, 67% on target rate. So 14% more accurate, 12% more on target. That's like a pretty big jump in terms of just like getting the ball where it needs to go. I don't know, man. AR is bad. Like AR, he'll always have a shot because he runs. Like that's certainly a positive for him. And frankly, like when he came back in after being hurt last year, he started to run a little bit more because they're just like, look, this is your career on the line. Like run. You might increase your risk of injury, whatever, but like you're not viable as a passer. I don't know how he's going to get better as a passer. Like he was a negative 0.2 EPA per pass guy last year. That's really bad. That's worse than Aiden O'Connell, worse than Daniel Jones. Better than Spencer Rattler. Better than Deshaun Watson. Worse than Mac Jones. Worse than Gardner Minshew. A little bit better than Jacoby Brissett. Try to give you some context. I think AR did not show enough in year 2 to like, he's a flyer QB3 at best. But frankly, like taking him as QB3, over the Cleveland guys, I would do that. All right, 2773 here. RB or a wide receiver would be viable. Wide receivers got really nothing left. Demarcus Robinson, meh. RB here, really nothing left. QB, nothing left. This is awful. I might just take a 4th tight end because I think Oronde Gadsden's the best click at this point. Demarcus Robinson going to get suspended for a DUI or something, but he does get red zone targets. I guess that's it for me. So final team here, 2783, Demarcus Robinson, the very not illustrious 20th round pick. We got Jordan Love, Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Chris Godwin, Trey McBride, the elite tight end. Again, the top part here works. Like I think all this stuff is good. Just getting Jordan Love as QB, like we got a stack out of it, but really would have liked to get one of the intended QBs with us. Jacoby Myers, my flex wide receiver. Matthew Golden got him as a nice value. Jalen Warren, okay, click at ADP. Tucker Kraft, Tua Tagovailoa, Trey Benson, Tank Bigsby, Romeo Dobbs, Darren Waller, Marshawn Lloyd, Diami Brown, Keaton Mitchell, Demarcus Robinson. Thought I would get a Malik Washington back, if not Westbrook-Ikine. Neither came back for my Tua stacking. So the Miami stacking kind of a bust, but at least I got a QB. This team could have been better. Really bums me out. But I think an important reminder here, like for DK Best Ball in particular, people panic about QB pretty heavily. You could see here in this range always how much QB flies off the board. But again, multiple guys taking 2 QBs in a row here. It just makes it kind of tough to figure out. But I probably could have done it better. None of the QBs I wanted came back to the turn. And that's the shitty part about picking up the turn. I'm going to check the chats here real fast. Not a question, but you handle your RB capital well. I appreciate that. Feels pretty narrow, but that's that. Money cap better than thinking cap. Oof, depends on the day. Might need to be in a Taysom role. Who are we hoping for to be in a Taysom role? I'd wish for Anthony Richardson. Oh, that's sad. But frankly, if he got that, he might be more valuable than he is as a QB right now, unfortunately. Hoping the shoulder was an issue last year for AR and his throwing percentage as a Cowboys fan. But the thing is, like, I don't know. I mean, throwing shoulders it, but he wasn't hurt all year. Like he wasn't like the shoulder was messed up the year before. I guess if that's the cover they're giving him, is that Anthony Richardson was like hurt all year last year, and that's why he's not good. Um, but he wasn't accurate his rookie year either. Like I, was happy with the fantasy results we got for that month that he played his rookie year, but he did not show any improvement in terms of like hitting guys where he had to. And that was a flaw in college. Like he was accurate enough, past the sticks on deep balls as well. For short range stuff, there was no accuracy there really. And I think that's something that is spooky because that should be the easiest stuff to get. That's what Bo Nix feasted on in Oregon. He couldn't do that at Florida, Anthony Richardson, that is. So to see him not show any growth year one or year two in the pros, I don't know that it ever gets there, but I hope it does. I hope it does for his sake. I'm just not taking that risk in best ball this year personally. But that's it for now, guys. Again, check out my stream on my @SplashPlayPod channel. Did another draft on DraftKings along with Underdog and, of course, with our friends over at Drafters on the Splash Play channel. Check that out. But really, the big one you need to check out is on DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app right now. If you do put in the entry on there, your first $20 entry, you get another one for free right away. So that ends up being 2 shots at $15 million without ever drafting or not ever looking at a team again. So that's the big thing you get. And I would also encourage you guys to listen to our pal Greg Ehrenberg here for more details to know about DraftKings Best Ball this year.
It's best ball season, and DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. Enter a lineup in the $15 million best ball contest for just $20, and you'll score another best ball ticket to play free for a share of $15 million, giving you a second chance to win big. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 best ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million and get a second ticket to play free for a share of $15 million. That's 2 chances to win big without ever setting your lineup again. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions do apply and void where prohibited. 1 per customer. Enter the Best Ball $15 million headliner contest by September 4th, 2025 to get 1 bonus entry. $20 entry fee required. Reward expires in 30 days. See terms at DraftKings.com/NFL-best-ball, sponsored by DraftKings.
Hey, there we go. That's the best bit that this thing does is just continually going on. But important news, of course, in that one. Make sure to call the numbers if you need them. You guys know that, hopefully, at this point. But appreciate all you guys who've been here watching live. Subscribe at the like button. Stay tuned for the MLB Live Before Lock show. That is coming up later today with, I should do the whole plug, right? I should have pulled it up in advance. Would have been the smarter thing to do. Coming up with Greg and Eric, 6 p.m. Eastern today. So go watch that coming up in a couple hours. And I'll see you guys again on Thursday at 3 p.m. So come join me on there. Check out my @SplashPlayPod channel as well. Great content on there across all the best ball sites. And play on that DraftKings site, guys. Go get in there while you can. I'll see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Good luck. And bye-bye.